Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos. The main character after dying wakes up as Battle Beast inside of Marvel. What is Battle Beast going to do inside of Marvel after he faces Thor in a battle at the start?
Rank. The top glowed faintly from residual heat. Emergency vehicles gathered at its base. Fire trucks, police cars, and SHIELD vans created a ring of flashing lights. Civilians watched from behind cordons, pointing up and talking loudly. Inside the cabin, Stark lay strapped to a stretcher, helmet open, oxygen mask covering his nose and mouth. A medic checked his vitals. Another agent relayed information to someone on a secure line. Coulson sat across from me, hands clasped loosely, studying my face without comment. I watched Stark. He was not conscious anymore. His brows were drawn slightly, tension still present even in rest. His chest rose and fell steadily. He had given everything he had tonight. Armor, wit, stubbornness, resolve. It had been barely enough to keep him alive. Without me, he likely would have died. I did not feel pride about that. It was just another fact. But I respected that he had stood alone until I arrived. I looked out the side window again. The city lights stretched to the horizon. Somewhere far from here, Hulk roamed. Somewhere above, Thor walked the halls of his realm, dealing with his brother's actions. Somewhere beneath the earth, men handled a cube that did not belong to them. This world had many battles ahead. That was good. I tightened my hand around the metal rail, just enough to feel it press back. I was not done here. Chapter 14, Terms of Alliance. The flight back from Stark's tower was short. I stayed on the chopper's skid until we cleared the tallest buildings. When we were over empty land again, I moved inside at Coulson's gesture. The metal floor shifted under my weight, but held. The air smelled of fuel and sweat and faint burnt metal. Tony Stark lay on a stretcher, strapped in, mask on his face, his armor powered down. The medic at his side checked his pulse and adjusted wires that ran to a monitor bolted to the wall. The beeping was steady. Slow. He would live. I watched him for a moment, then turned my gaze out the window slit. The city lights faded behind us. Dark ground stretched ahead. We reached the SHIELD facility as the edge of dawn began to color the sky. The Quinjet met us there, and together we dropped into the underground hangar. The chopper settled on its pad. The ramp came down. Agents moved fast, precise, with the movements of people who had practiced this many times. They rushed Stark out first. They rolled his stretcher down a corridor toward a medical wing. He drifted in and out of awareness, eyes half open, expression unfocused. He did not look at me again. That was fine. Our part of this night was done. I stepped down from the chopper and onto the hangar floor. The concrete was smooth and cold under my claws. The open space felt smaller than before after being above a city. Coulson came down behind me, pulling off his headset. He ran a hand over his face, then straightened his tie out of habit. "Get those logs to Fury," he said to an agent, handing over a data drive. "And get me a full structural report on that tower when we have it." "Yes, sir," the agent said. The hangar settled into quieter movement after the first rush. Ground crew checked the chopper blades. Technicians rolled carts. A loudspeaker buzzed faintly with distant announcements. I moved toward the open area they had designated for me before. No one tried to stop me. I sat down on the floor in the center, crossing my legs, resting my hands on my knees. My body was fully healed now. Even the faint tightness from the arc blast was gone. Only a memory of strain remained in my muscles. The fights with Hulk, Abomination, the Destroyer, Thor, and now Stains, suit all layered together. My body carried every impact as a history written in how comfortable I felt at rest. I closed my eyes, listening. The facility hummed around me. Air systems, distant footsteps, the clack of keys, murmured voices, dull, ordinary sound. It did not bother me. It simply meant there was no current threat. After some time, minutes, maybe longer, another set of footsteps approached. These were familiar. even unhurried. "Coulson, battle beast," he said. I opened my eyes and looked at him. He stood a few paces away, hands relaxed at his sides. His jacket was off now, draped over his arm. He had loosened his collar. He looked more tired than before, but his eyes were still clear. "Speak," I said. He moved over and sat on a crate near my position, same as he had done after Harlem. He held a tablet in one hand, but did not turn it on yet. "We patched Stark up," he said. "He'll be fine. Takes more than one old man in stolen armor to kill that ego." "That is good," I said. "He still has room to grow. Killing him now would have been wasteful." Coulson looked at me carefully. "You really mean that?" he said. "Yes," I answered. "I do not enjoy crushing things that have not reached their full strength. It is unsatisfying." He nodded slowly. "That lines up with what we've seen." We sat there for a short time in silence. Agents moved in the background, giving us space without needing to be told. Some watched from the edges, quiet. Finally, Coulson cleared his throat. "Director Fury wants something from you," he said. I turned my head slightly. "Then he should come and ask," I said. "He is the one in charge here." "He will," Coulson said. "But he sent me first. He wants to know the answer before he walks in." I frowned slightly. "He is cautious," I said. "He's alive," Coulson replied. "It comes with the job." He set the tablet on his lap and rested his hands on it. "We've had a file open for a while," he said. "You know this, a collection of names and projects. Possible recruits, potential allies, threats too big for one team." I remembered. "The initiative," I said. "Yes," Coulson answered. "The Avengers Initiative, working title. It's mostly an idea right now, pieces that don't fit together yet. Stark, Banner, possibly Thor if he ever comes back to this planet long enough to shake hands. A soldier we're still looking for, others we haven't found yet." He looked up at me, eyes steady. "And you?" I held his gaze. "I am not part of your team," I said. "I do not join your army." "I know," he said. "You've made that very clear. You don't take orders. You don't wear uniforms. You don't fight for flags. We get it." He leaned forward slightly. "But this world is filling up with strong people," he continued. "Some of them are dangerous. Some are unstable. Some are both. If one of those threats gets big enough, teams won't be optional anymore. We'll need everyone we can convince." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "Fury wants to know something simple," he said. "When that day comes, and we bring Earth's strongest to one battlefield, if we gather them in one place for one fight, can we expect you to stand with them, even if only for that one battle?" I did not answer immediately. The question reached a part of me that cared, not about them, about the fight he was describing. Earth's strongest, no single opponent, a cluster, a convergence. If one enemy was great enough that this planet's mightiest all stood in one place to face it, that would be a battle I would not ignore. I let the idea sit in my mind. Coulson waited. He did not repeat himself. He knew better than to push too fast. "If the threat is small," I said finally, "I will not come. If it is something your soldiers or single champions can handle, that is their path. I will not waste my time." He nodded. "We expected that," he said. "If the threat is large," I continued, "large enough that it demands everything your world can send, and still that may not be enough, then I will be there." I watched his face as I spoke. His expression did not change, but I saw his shoulders ease by a fraction. "You're saying you de-cooperate," he said slowly, "if the enemy is strong enough." "I am saying I will enter the battle," I replied. "I will not cooperate in the way you think. I will not listen to tactical commands or wait in a line, but I will fight the same enemy. I will not turn my strength on those who stand with me unless they betray the battle itself." "Define that," he said. "Betray the battle." "If one of your so-called allies attacks me without cause," I said, tries to cage me, or flees in a way that endangers the fight, I will respond as I see fit. Until then, I will let them stand. I will focus on the true enemy. He absorbed that, thinking it through. His fingers tapped once against the side of the tablet, then stopped. "Would you protect them?" he asked. "Say we have a team formed. Thor, Stark, Banner, others. You're all in the field. If one of them is about to die and you can stop it with one move, do you move?" "I am not their shield," I said. "I do not exist to protect them. But if saving them makes the fight better, if their presence increases the challenge, then yes, I will act. Not for them, for the strength they add to the battle. So if their survival benefits the fight," he summarized, "you'll keep them alive." "Yes," I said. "And if it does?" he asked. "Then it is their fate," I replied. "If they fall because they were too weak, that is their failure. I do not mourn weakness." He looked down for a moment. "You're consistent, I'll give you that," he said. "I am honest," I said. "You knew this before you asked." He nodded. "We wanted to hear it out loud," he said. "Fury doesn't like guessing." As if summoned by his name, another set of footsteps approached. Heavy boots, deliberate pace. Nick Fury stepped into the brighter light of the hangar floor, coat hanging around his legs, one eye fixed on me. His presence changed the air around the nearby agents. They straightened, watched more closely, tried to look like they were working even when they had no tasks. He came to stand beside Coulson, slightly ahead of him. "Did you get your answer?" Fury asked, without looking away from me. "Yes, sir," Coulson said. "He'll show up if the world is ending, as long as it's interesting enough for him." Fury's mouth tightened slightly. Then he addressed me directly. "I heard most of that," he said. "I like to walk in late when people are being honest." I watched him. "You could have asked yourself," I said. "I'm asking now," he replied. "Nice and clear. You already said you don't want to be on a team. I don't care about that. But if I put everything I have onto one field, if I drag Stark, Banner, Thor, and every other heavy hitter, we can scrape together onto a single battlefield. And if I call you, will you come?" "Yes," I said. I did not hesitate. "If the enemy is worthy, if the fight demands everything, I will come." He held my gaze for a long moment, weighing me. "Will you follow my orders?" he asked. "No," I answered. Coulson almost smiled. Fury did not. "Will you take the field I tell you to take?" Fury asked. "I will go where the strongest enemy stands," I said. "If that matches your plan, then you will think I obey. But I do not. I follow the fight." "That's what I figured," Fury said. He looked to the side for a moment, thinking, then back at me. "Here's the thing," he said. "Teams need trust, coordination. You don't care about that. You care about the fight. I can work with that, as long as you don't turn around and punch one of my people through a building because they annoyed you." "I will not strike them without cause," I said. "Annoyance is not enough. Betrayal is. Weakness that threatens the battle is. Understand that line." He nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "Then you're off the roster, officially." Coulson glanced at him. "Sir." Fury clarified. "On paper, he doesn't exist on the team," he said. "No badge, no codename, no file that says Avenger. That keeps the politicians from asking why we have an uncontrollable alien on a team meant to protect the world." He looked at me again. "But in practice," he said, "you're on my emergency list. If it gets bad enough, I call everything. That includes you." "That is acceptable," I said. Fury let out a slow breath. "Good," he said. "Then we understand each other." He stepped back. "Phil," he said, "get me a written summary of tonight's events. Include his evaluation of Stark and Stain. Flag it with priority. And add a note to the initiative file. Battle Beast, unaffiliated ally. Only deploy for worst-case scenarios." "Yes, sir," Coulson said. Fury gave one last look around the hangar, then turned and walked away, his coat moving behind him as he headed toward the exit. Coulson watched him go, then looked back at me. "Congratulations," he said dryly. You're officially unofficial. I shrugged. Your labels mean nothing to me, I said. Call me what you want. It does not change what I do. He smiled faintly. I figured you'd say that. He stood, picking up the tablet. There will be more, he said. More people like Stark, like Banner, like Thor. We're just at the beginning of this mess. That is why I stay, I said. Your world is becoming interesting. It is not dull anymore. I will not leave until it bores me. Carlson nodded once. Then we'll keep you informed when things get interesting, he said. He took a few steps away, then paused and looked back over his shoulder. One last thing, he added. If we ever do put that team together, and you end up on the same battlefield, try not to break them before the enemy does. If they are strong enough, I said, I will not need to. He accepted that and walked off, already tapping notes into the tablet. I was alone again, in the open space of the hangar. I shifted my position, stretching my legs out in front of me, arms resting on my knees. The lights overhead shone in steady lines. The smell of fuel, metal, and human sweat remained, constant and familiar now. I closed my eyes and let my mind move ahead. I knew what was coming for this world. More gods, more monsters, men in better armor, creatures from other realms, weapons made from things that should have been left buried. And somewhere in that path, a battle where they would all stand together for the first time. I would be there. Not for them. For the fight, Chapter 15, the soldier from the ice. They brought him in quietly at first. I felt the change in the facility more than I heard it. The pattern of movement shifted. Doors cycled more often. Footsteps increased in the inner corridors. Voices stayed low, but the tone changed, focused, contained. From my place on the outer concrete stretch that SHIELD had given me, I watched trucks come and go. One of them carried a large sealed container under heavy guard. I could smell old ice and metal, even from a distance. They thought they were discreet. They were not. Later, when the sun died and the sky turned dark, Carlson came looking for me. I sat on my usual slab of stone, arms resting on my knees, eyes half closed. The night air was cool against my fur. The facility lights cast a pale glow on the fences and towers. His footsteps were familiar, measured, calm. "Battle Beast," he called as he approached. I opened my eyes and turned my head slightly. "You found another toy," I said. He stopped a few meters away, hands in his pockets, tie a little crooked from a long day. "Something like that," he replied. "We pulled a man out of the ice. Old plane, old crash site, miraculously preserved." "I know who he is," I said. "Steve Rogers, Captain America, super soldier from your last war." Carlson nodded slowly. "Word travels fast for someone who barely talks to anyone," he said. "Your people talk loudly," I replied, "and I do not ignore what enters this world." He gave a faint, contained smile. "Fair enough." He shifted his weight, then continued. "He's awake now, disoriented, trying to get used to the new century. We have him in one of our secure gyms. Fury just finished talking to him." He paused. "You're interested," he said. "Yes," I answered. "He is enhanced, stronger than your average human. I want to see that strength myself." "Now?" Carlson asked. "He's still getting his bearings. He just woke up in a world that left him behind 70 years ago. Maybe give him a day." "No," I said. "Strength does not wait. If he is a soldier, he has learned to stand fast even when confused." Carlson exhaled slowly through his nose. "I had a feeling you'd say that," he said. "I'm supposed to tell you we prefer you not approach him without warning." I stood up in one smooth motion. "I heard your words," I said. "I do not accept them." His shoulders sagged just slightly in resignation. "I'll at least make sure the med team clears out," he said. "I don't want doctors in the blast zone." He turned and started walking back toward the facility. I followed, my steps heavy but controlled, the concrete faintly vibrating under each impact. We passed through the outer gate without delay. The guards had orders not to challenge me if I walked with purpose. They watched me pass, fear in their scent and tension in their bodies, but they did not raise their rifles. Inside, the corridors grew narrower. The ceilings dipped lower. I still fit, but only just. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The air smelled of cleaning agents, coffee, and human sweat. We approached a reinforced door guarded by two SHILD tactical agents in black uniforms. They straightened when they saw Carlson. Their eyes widened when they saw me behind him. One of them stepped forward, raising a hand. "Sir," he said to Carlson, "Director Fury gave strict orders. Subject is to be left undisturbed for now. Only medical and psych clearance." Carlson looked at him steadily. "The director's aware I'm here," he said. "Move aside." The guard hesitated, then tried again, eyes flickering to me. "And him?" he asked. I stepped forward, closing the distance. The man's hand twitched toward his weapon. "Move," I said quietly. "You are not who I came to see." He swallowed, throat bobbing, but held his ground. "Sir, I can't let." I reached out and placed one hand on his shoulder. I did not squeeze hard. I did not break anything. I simply pushed him gently to the side. His boots slid against the floor with a short squeak. His face tightened with humiliation, but also with the understanding that he could do nothing. His partner raised his rifle, hands shaking. The barrel pointed at my chest. "Stand down," Carlson said evenly. The second guard hesitated, then lowered the weapon, jaw clenched. I stepped past them and pressed one clawed hand against the reinforced door. I could have torn it off its hinges. Instead, I waited for Carlson to swipe his card and enter the code. The lock clicked, the door opened. Inside was a high-ceilinged training room. Punching bags hung from metal frames. Weight benches, pull-up bars, and mats lined the floor. A simple clock ticked on the wall. The room smelled of leather, dust, and fresh sweat. He was there. Steve Rogers stood near one corner, hands taped, wearing simple training clothes. White t-shirt, grey sweatpants, boots. He faced a heavy punching bag. The bag swayed wildly from his last hit. A new dent marked its surface. His shoulders were broad and solid, muscles defined under the shirt. He moved like someone who knew every inch of his own body. His breathing was steady, though there was a faint tightness in it, a man still adjusting to a new reality. He hit the bag again. The chain snapped. The bag flew off its hook and crashed to the floor, sliding. He stared at it for a moment with a tired expression, then reached for another bag, pulling it closer. He heard the door then. His head turned, eyes sharp. He saw Carlson first, then me. His eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. His posture shifted, weight settling into his feet. It was subtle, but I noticed. He was ready for trouble. Carlson stayed near the doorway. He did not announce me. He seemed to understand that the moment was between the two of us now. Steve's gaze moved over my form, white fur, armor, claws, horns, scars. His jaw tightened. He did not take a step back. He spoke first. His voice was calm, with a hint of gravel. "New kind of agent?" he asked. "Or is this what passes for subtle these days?" I walked forward slowly, each step measured. "I am not an agent," I said. He studied me more closely now. His eyes showed confusion but no fear. "Then what are you?" he asked. "A warrior," I answered. "I am Battle Beast." He gave the name a brief, puzzled stare, then shook his head slightly. "Well, Battle Beast," he said, "this is supposed to be a closed room. They send you to test me or just to stare." I stopped a short distance away, close enough to reach him in one move, far enough that he had space to react. "I came to fight you," I said plainly, "to test your strength." His brows knit, his mouth pressed into a tight line. "I'm not in the mood for sparring," he said. "Long week." "This is not a spar," I said. "This is a fight. You are a super soldier. I want to know what that means." He glanced past me toward Carlson. "Is this a joke?" he asked. Carlson said nothing. The silence was an answer. Steve turned back to me. Something hard settled in his eyes. You think barging in here and throwing punches at someone fresh out of the ice is how this works? He asked. I do not care about your rest, I said. If you are strong, you will stand. If you are weak, you will fall. That is all. A faint spark of anger flashed across his face. He did not raise his voice. He did not posture. He simply straightened his back more fully. I don't start fights, he said, but I finish them. If you come at me, I'll defend myself. That is enough, I said. Prepare yourself. I moved. I was faster than him. I closed the distance in a single step, drawing my arm back. I did not swing my full power at first. Even in my hunger for combat, I understood that obliterating him in one blow would tell me nothing. I aimed a controlled strike at his chest, enough force to send him flying if he did not block. He blocked. He pivoted on his lead foot, brought his forearm in, and caught my fist on hardened bone, turning slightly to bleed off force. His arm shook from the impact, his teeth clenched, but he did not go down. The bag behind him swung from the air, displaced by the blow. His counter came quick, a straight punch at my ribs, clean and precise. His fist landed. I barely felt it. The hit had good form. The weight transfer was correct. The speed was decent for a human, but the power behind it was limited compared to what I had tasted from Hulk, Thor, or even the Destroyer. It was like being poked by a small weapon. Sharp, present, not meaningless, but not what I sought. I allowed myself a small, inner ripple of disappointment. He struck again, sensing the lack of reaction as a challenge. A hook now, aimed at my jaw, then a low shot at my midsection. Each hit landed where he intended. None made me move. I stared down at him as the blows connected. You are precise, I said, but light. He gritted his teeth and adjusted. He dropped lower and went for my leg, trying to sweep it or disrupt my balance. I shifted my weight slightly and did not fall. He followed with an elbow toward my side. I caught his wrist mid-strike. My fingers wrapped around his forearm. His muscles flexed under my grip, solid and well-trained. I respected that, but there was no real contest. He tried to pull away. I did not let him. I turned my hips and shoved him backward with one arm. He flew across the mat, landed on his back, rolled, and came up to one knee. The landing was clean. He took the momentum and used it to rise. That impressed me more than his raw power. He spat a bit of blood to the side and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. His eyes hardened. Okay, he said quietly. You hit harder than I do. I walked forward, steady, unhurried. I hit harder than anyone on this world except a handful, I said. You are not among them. He exhaled heavily. We'll see, he said. He charged. His run was fast, faster than a normal human. His feet barely slipped on the mat. He closed the gap and threw a tight combination, jab, cross, hook, body shot. Each punch placed well. Each one landed. None moved me. I lifted my arm and swatted his last punch aside like it was nothing. He followed with a kick to my knee. My leg absorbed it. I knocked his next strike away and stepped in, bringing my open hand to his chest. I pushed, not even striking, just shoving with the weight of my arm. He flew backward again and hit the wall this time. The padding took some of it, not all. The sound of his impact echoed in the room. The clock on the wall shook. He slid down to one knee, hand on the mat. Outside the door, alarms sounded faintly. My attack had triggered security protocols. I heard boots hammering in the corridor. Steve forced himself up again, even as his ribs protested. He held his stance, shoulders squared. He was hurt now, not broken, but the gap between us was clear. The door burst open. 4 SHIELD tactical agents rushed in, rifles raised, armor on, faces tight. They spread out, forming a line between me and Steve, weapons trained on me. Stand down, one shouted. Now. I did not. I glanced at them once, then dismissed them. You are not part of this, I said. Move. We're not asking, the lead agent barked. His hands were steady, his stance firm, but the pulse in his neck jumped. Back away from the subject, or we will open fire. Steve looked at them sharply. Hold your fire, he said, voice rough but firm. You're not going to stop him with bullets. That's not your call, sir, the agent replied. I moved. I stepped forward into their line. They fired. Bullets hammered into my chest and shoulders, biting into armor and fur. The impacts strung in the moment, then faded. I kept walking. The rounds flattened or deflected. A few lodged shallowly, then pushed themselves back out as my body healed. I reached them. My arm swept out in a controlled arc. The nearest two agents flew sideways, rifles torn from their hands. One crashed into the wall padding. The other hit the mat and slid. They groaned, breath driven out of them, but nothing snapped. The third went for a sidearm. I grabbed his vest and lifted him off his feet. His hand scrabbled for a taser. I tossed him aside into a pile of punching bags. The last tried to duck under my reach and go for Steve instead, as if pulling him away would help. I stepped in his path and bumped him with my thigh. He spun and fell hard. None of them got back up fast. They were not weak for what they were, but they were nothing to me. I turned back to Steve. He had not run. He stood in the same place, chest heaving, eyes on me. He had watched the entire exchange. You didn't have to do that, he said tightly. They stood between me and my opponent, I said. They knew the risk. He squared his shoulders again. He was tired now. There was a tightness in the way he held himself, but there was no quit. Seems like you got the wrong idea about me, he said. I'm not what you're looking for. Not yet, I said. I went to him one last time. He tried to raise his guard again. I did not give him the chance to build momentum. I stepped inside his reach and tapped his forearm aside with a flick of my wrist. Then I drove my open palm into his chest, not with full power, not enough to crush, but enough to decide the fight. The blow lifted him off his feet. He flew backward and hit the wall again, hard enough to bounce. He dropped to the mat and lay there on his back for a moment, staring at the ceiling. His lungs strained for air. His fingers curled at his sides. His body screamed at him to stay down. He rolled onto his side. He tried to push himself up. He failed the first time. His arms shook and gave out. He hit the mat again with a low grunt. He tried a second time. This time he made it to sitting. He leaned against the wall, one hand pressed to his chest where I had struck him. He winced as he breathed. I watched. He would stand again if I let this continue. He would keep standing until his body refused. That was who he was. I respected that. But I had what I came for. His power was clear to me now, enhanced, strong for a man, about equal to that giant green man in that subway car before he becomes full Hulk, but not a match for me, not close. There was no thrill in this, no pressure, no sense that he could push me to my limits. He was a soldier with a good heart and a strong body. He was not a worthy opponent for me, not now. I let my arms drop to my sides. I stepped back. He looked up at me, breathing hard. Sweat ran down his temples. Pain lined his jaw. You done? He asked quietly. Yes, I said. You are not what I sought. I turned away from him. The door banged open again. This time it was fury. He walked in with authority, coat trailing, only eye blazing with controlled anger. More agents stood in the hall behind him, weapons ready but not aimed. He took in the scene in a single glance. Unconscious and groaning soldiers, holes in the wall padding, a ruined punching bag, Steve against the wall, me standing calm in the center of the room. His jaw clenched. Everyone out, he said sharply, except him and me. Then he looked at the injured. Medics now, get these men to the infirmary. A squad of medical staff rushed in past him, tending to the fallen agents first, then moving towards Steve. He waved them aside for a moment. "Not yet," Steve said hoarsely. "I'm fine." Fury walked over to him. "Doesn't look like it," he said. His tone was flat, but there was concern there, buried under layers of command. Steve gave him a stubborn look. "I've had worse," he replied. He tried to stand. Fury reached down and offered an arm. Steve took it and got to his feet, unsteady but upright. His eyes went back to me. "You pick interesting friends," he said to Fury. Fury turned to me now. His expression was hard. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he asked. I met his gaze without flinching. "Testing your super soldier," I said. I wanted to see if he belonged on the list of worthy opponents. "And?" Fury asked, voice still low but sharp. "He does not," I said. "Not yet." A flash of irritation crossed Steve's face, but he swallowed whatever he wanted to say and let Fury handle it. Fury stepped closer, stopping just out of arm's reach. "We had an understanding," he said. "You don't attack my people without cause. You don't break what we're trying to build." "I did not kill them," I said. "I did not cripple them. They will stand again, so will he." "You blindsided a man who just woke up in a different century," Fury shot back. "You call that a fair test?" "Life does not wait until you are ready," I said. "If he is to fight what is coming, he must be able to stand even now. I measured him. That is done." Fury's eye narrowed. "You know you're in the wrong on this one," he said. "Don't you?" "I know this was not what you wanted," I said. "I know he was not prepared in the way you prefer. That does not matter to me." "You're avoiding the question," Fury pressed. "Were you wrong?" I considered the words. I was not a creature given to self-reproach, but I was not blind. "Yes," I said slowly. "I misjudged his level. I expected more. I thought he would reach higher. He did not. That is my error." Fury waited. I did not offer more. He clearly expected something else. Regret, an apology, something to smooth the edges. He did not get it. I would not say sorry for following my nature. I recognized a miscalculation. That was all. Steve watched us both, hands still on his ribs. "You could have asked," he said to me. "I would have sparred. I don't turn down a challenge, but coming in like that," he shook his head. "I do not ask," I said. "I take the fights I want. If that offends you, grow strong enough to do something about it." He held my gaze. He did not look away or flinch. "I plan to," he said. I believed him. Fury finally sighed, tension leaving his shoulders in a slow exhale. "Med team," he called. "Now." They swarmed Steve, checking his vitals, examining his ribs, shining lights in his eyes. He tolerated it with visible irritation, but did not push them away. Fury looked back at me. "Get out of my training room," he said. "Now, I don't want you near him again unless I say so." "I will not attack him again," I said. "He is not worth my time for now." "That's not the same thing," Fury replied. "But I'll take what I can get." I turned and walked toward the door. The agents in the hall stepped back quickly to clear a path. Their eyes followed me with a mix of fear and anger. I did not look at them. As I reached the doorway, Steve's voice followed me. "Hey," he said. I paused and glanced back over my shoulder. He stood with the support of a medic, but he held himself as straight as he could. His eyes were clear despite the pain. "You hit harder than anything I've felt," he said. "I'll remember that." "You should," I said. "Learn from it." His jaw tightened in determination. "Next time you come at me," he said, "I'll be ready." I nodded once. "If you reach a level that interests me," I said, "I will test you again." Then I left. The door closed behind me with a solid thud. In the corridor, the air felt cooler. The sounds of the training room faded. I walked back toward my open ground, feeling no guilt, no shame, only the simple awareness that the soldier from the ice was not yet what I wanted. One day he might be. If he survived long enough to grow into his potential, then we would see. Chapter 16, Gathering of the Strong. Steve Rogers trained every day after our fight. I watched. SHILD had moved his regiment to a larger gym after the first incident. They reinforced the walls, added heavier bags, thicker mats, and a wider assortment of equipment. Cameras watched from the corners. Medical staff guarded the door more than before. They did not invite me. I came anyway. There was a raised observation level above the gym, separated by thick glass. It was not meant as a cell for me. It was meant as a safe distance. I stood there often, arms folded, looking down. Steve ran drills, push-ups, pull-ups, sprints, heavy lifts. Sweat soaked his shirt. He hit bags until chains snapped. He changed to stronger bags. His movements grew sharper, more efficient. His body adapted quickly. He pushed himself harder after every failure. He had taken our fight and used it. He did not complain. He did not bring it up. He trained. That earned a small, quiet respect in me. Not enough to call him a worthy opponent yet. Enough to watch. One day I stood at the glass again. Steve was working a heavy bag with clean, fast combinations, turning his hips, breathing steady. The bag swung wildly from each hit. Behind me, the door to the observation deck opened. I heard Fury's footsteps, then another pair, lighter, quieter. I did not turn. I watched Steve finish his set and step back, chest heaving. Still keeping an eye on him, huh? Fury said. Yes, I answered. He improves. That's what he does, Fury said. He gets better. The second set of footsteps approached the glass. A woman's voice spoke next. Calm, controlled. That's him, she asked. The one you said picked a fight with Rogers on day one. Yes, Fury said. Battle beast, try not to poke him. I turned my head. Natasha Romanoff stood there, red hair tied back, wearing a fitted black tactical jumpsuit. Her posture was relaxed, but her eyes were sharp and watchful. She took me in the same way I took her in, measuring, weighing. She met my gaze without flinching. I've read your file, she said, or the parts they let me see. Harlem, New Mexico, Stark's Tower, you like trouble. I like battle, I corrected. Trouble follows. Her lips twitched, not quite a smile. That sounds about right, she said. Fury gestured between us. Romanoff, he said to me, Natasha, you'll be seeing more of her. She gets sent where the weird things are. I nodded once. You are strong for a human, I said to her. Not at the level I seek, but sharp, efficient, useful. She raised an eyebrow. That almost sounds like a compliment, she said. It is an assessment, I replied. Steve finished his round below, grabbed a towel and wiped his face. He glanced up at the observation glass, seeing the figures there. His eyes landed on me, then on Fury, then on Natasha. He nodded once, then went back to his work. Fury checked his watch. Romanoff, he said. Banner's almost here. I want you at the landing bay. Natasha's expression shifted slightly, focus narrowing. You sure I'm the right face for that? She asked. Last time someone tried to recruit him, he smashed a whole campus. You're good with monsters, Fury said. Feels appropriate. She exhaled quietly through her nose. All right, she said. She glanced at me. You coming, or are you going to stand here and loom some more? I will meet him, I said. Hulk's host. He is worth my time. Fury's eye narrowed slightly. You don't start anything with him in my hangar, he said. We clear. I will not attack the man, I said. Not here, not yet. I want Hulk on a battlefield, not inside your walls. I am not stupid. That's the closest thing to reassurance I'm going to get, Fury muttered. Good enough. Let's move. We left the observation level. The echo of Steve's blows followed us down the corridor before the door shut behind. The path to the main landing bay ran through a series of secured halls. The floors were polished concrete. Walls were plain, broken by security panels and doors. Agents walked back and forth with purpose. Files in hand, weapons holstered, radios at their collars. Natasha walked at an easy pace, but she missed nothing. Eyes moved, picking up details, exits, angles. Fury walked straight, not bothering to respond to the looks we got. My presence drew stares. Some agents stepped aside quickly. Others pretended not to notice. We reached the bay. The hangar doors were half open, letting in a band of daylight. A small helicopter waited on the far side, rotors slowing as it settled. Techs and soldiers worked around the perimeter, clearing space. The side door of the helicopter swung open. Bruce Banner stepped out. He looked smaller than I remembered when he was Hulk. His frame was average, shoulders slightly hunched, clothes simple and modest, slacks and a beige shirt with rolled sleeves. He carried a worn bag in one hand. His hair was messy. His face was lined with tiredness and caution. He took a few careful steps onto the hangar floor, eyes darting quickly around the environment. He scanned exits, personnel, weapons, and the layout. His gaze lingered on the big doors, then the ceiling. He smelled of stress and old fear. He had not forgotten Harlem. Fury and Natasha walked ahead to meet him. I stayed a few paces behind, watching. "Dr. Banner," Fury called. Banner stiffened slightly, then turned to face him. "Director Fury," he said. His voice was quiet but clear. "You dragged me a long way. I'm hoping there's a good reason." Fury nodded. "There is," he said. "We need your help with something, gamma-related. You're the best there is." "You mean I'm the only one stupid enough to keep looking at this stuff after what it did to me?" Banner replied, a little dry. "Your words, not mine," Fury said. Natasha stepped into view next. Banner's eyes landed on her. Something subtly changed in his posture, a different kind of awareness. "Dr. Banner," she said, "I'm Natasha." "Another one of his," Banner said, glancing at Fury. "Let me guess. Spy, combat training, guns, questions." "The job description is close enough," she said. He gave a short, humorless smile, then looked past them and saw me. His whole body reacted. His shoulders tensed, his grip on the bag tightened, his pupils widened. Sweat rose slightly at his hairline. He stared at me for a solid few seconds. "I remember you," he said quietly. I stepped forward a little, not fast, not aggressive. "Harlem," I said. "You were different then, stronger, angrier." His jaw clenched, his throat worked once. "That wasn't me," he said. "That was him." "It was both of you," I replied. "Two forms, one being. Hulk is inside you. I smell him even now." He swallowed again, then forced himself to stand straighter. "And what are you doing here?" he asked. "SHIELD bringing in nuclear options now." "I exist here," I said. "They do not control me. They call when the fights interest me. I came to see you. The man behind the beast. I wanted to know what kind of mind carries that strength." A flicker of anger, fear, and shame crossed his face in a small, brief series of expressions. "You're not going to make him come out. Not here," he said firmly. "If that's why you're standing there, you can turn around and walk out." Fury cut in. "That's not why you're here, Battle Beast," he said. "We talked about this. You don't try to trigger him in my base." I kept my eyes on Banner. "I said I will not attack," I said. "I meant it. I will not force Hulk out here. When he appears again, it will be on a battlefield, out there." I pointed toward the open door and the sky beyond it. Banner studied my face carefully, looking for any hint of deception. He found none. I did not lie. His shoulders loosened slightly, but the tension did not leave his frame. "You fought him," he said. "Harlem, both of you, him and the other one." "Abomination," I said. "The twisted copy. He was beneath Hulk. He relied on cruelty more than strength. Hulk was better." Banner's lips twitched, not into a smile, but into something that passed as reluctant, conflicted acknowledgement. "He'll be glad to hear you approve," he said softly. "I approve of his power," I said. Not his tantrums, but that is another matter. Natasha watched this exchange with sharp interest. Her eyes moved between Banner's face and mine, noting every reaction. "He's not your enemy, Dr. Banner," she said quietly. "At least not today." Banner snorted, a small sound. "That's somehow not as reassuring as you think," he said. Clint Barton entered from a side door then, bow case over one shoulder, jacket unzipped. He walked with a casual stride, but his eyes took everything in, the positions of Fury, Natasha, Banner, and me. His expression tightened slightly when he saw me. "So," Barton said, coming closer, "you brought our big friend inside the building again. And Banner, this is going to be a fun week." He stopped at Natasha's side. She gave him a small nod. He nodded back. "Barton," Fury said, "you've already met Battle Beast." "Yeah," Clint replied. "He ruined my night in the desert, almost broke my bow just by existing." He looked up at me, eyes steady. "You still chasing worthy opponents?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "You are not one of them." He smirked. "Didn't think I was," he said. "Just making sure your priorities haven't shifted." Natasha tilted her head slightly. "Director, are we doing introductions like this now?" she asked. Alien war beast, rogue gamma physicist, 2 assassins, and a super soldier in the basement. This is starting to look crowded. Fury ignored the tone. "Get used to crowded," he said. "World's not getting any simpler." Banner looked at Barton, then at Natasha, then back at me. "Let me get this straight," he said slowly. "This place has her," he pointed slightly at Natasha, "him at Barton, a thawed-out legend upstairs, and this walking zoo exhibit," he nodded at me, "all under one roof. And you brought me here. Why?" "Because we have a problem," Fury said. "A cube, energy, gamma signatures. You're the one who can track it. They're the ones who can fight when things go bad. And he jerked his chin at me, shows up when the problem gets big enough to justify it." Banner rubbed his forehead. "I'm not sure if that makes me feel better or worse," he said. "You're still here," I said. "You have not run, that says enough." He let out a tired breath. "I've done enough running," he said. A faint alarm beeped overhead. Not urgent, just notification. An agent ran up to Fury, tablet in hand. "Sir," she said, "we have an inbound, Stark." Fury's jaw tightened slightly. "Of course he's early," he muttered. I felt a small ripple of interest in my chest. Tony Stark, Iron Man. I had seen him in his armor, bleeding and stubborn on that roof. I had not seen him after in person, as a man without the suit. "Where?" Fury asked. "Approach vector from the west," the agent answered. "He's not using one of ours. He's flying in personally." "Of course he is," Natasha said. Barton smirked. "Bet he plays his own soundtrack in the helmet," he said. "Yes," I said, "he does." They glanced at me. I did not elaborate. Fury sighed and looked at Banner. "You're about to meet another one," he said. "Try not to let him get under your skin." Banner's expression shifted into wary confusion. "Another what?" he asked. "Genius with problems," Fury said. "Romanoff, Barton, bring these two to the upper bay. Let Stark make his entrance only once." He pointed at me. "You, try not to punch him on sight." "I will not attack Stark," I said. "He is not my enemy. He is not ready to be my opponent either. His armor is not sufficient yet." Natasha raised an eyebrow. "You have an answer ready for everything," she said. "I have seen enough," I replied. We moved. Natasha took point, walking with calm purpose. Barton fell in beside her, hands resting near where his bow would hang when assembled. Banner walked a little behind them, steps hesitant but forced steady. I followed, last in line, filling the width of the corridor. Agents pressed against walls to let us pass. We reached the upper landing bay. The main doors were open fully here, showing sky. The air was cooler and carried a faint breeze. A few SHILD vehicles sat parked near the walls. Technicians worked at consoles. Armed guards stood at ready points, more for show than for any real defense against something at Stark's level. A faint, distant roar cut through the air. It grew louder. I looked out at the horizon. A red and gold shape streaked toward the facility, leaving a thin trail of disrupted air. The thrusters glowed bright, cutting through the early evening light. The suit moved with practiced ease, banking and adjusting with small corrections. Iron Man. He slowed as he neared the bay, thrusters flaring to brake. He hovered just outside the hangar for a moment, as if posing, then rotated and drifted in, landing with a heavy but controlled thunk on the reinforced floor. The faceplate opened with a familiar hiss. Tony Stark's face appeared, goatee trimmed, expression smug, eyes bright with amusement and adrenaline. "Well," he said loudly, "it's good to see my tax dollars at work. Nice little clubhouse you've got here, Fury. Needs a bar." No one answered immediately. Stark took a few steps forward, armor still on, helmet open. His gaze swept the bay, taking in the guards, the techs, Natasha, Barton, Banner, and Fury. Then his eyes reached me. The smirk faded. His expression sharpened. For a second, something like caution showed, buried under the tired confidence. His shoulders tensed slightly inside the suit. "Oh," he said, "you're here." "Yes," I said. He looked at Fury. "You didn't mention the big white lion," he said. "I feel left out." Fury shrugged. "You didn't ask," he said. Tony huffed softly. "Right, that's on me," he said. He walked closer, stopping at a distance that was safe enough to react from. He kept his helmet open, eyes on my face. "How's the armor, Stark?" I asked. "It held tonight, barely." He eyed me. "You've seen the suit up close," he said. "You know the answer." "Yes," I said. "You survived the reactor. You held your ground against Stain. It was adequate, not impressive, not yet." He gave a small, tight smile. "You have very high standards," he said. "I do," I said. "I fought Hulk, Thor, the Destroyer. You are behind them." Banner's attention sharpened at the mention of Hulk. He frowned slightly. "You keep bringing him up," he said. "You really enjoyed that fight." "Yes," I said simply. "He was close to what I seek." Tony looked between Banner and me. "You two met in Harlem, right?" he asked. "Big green, big white, lots of property damage." "Yes," Banner said dryly. "It was not my best day." "It was not your worst either," I said. "You survived, you grew." Natasha stepped forward slightly, folding her arms. "Stark," she said, "this is Battle Beast. You saw some of his work at your tower. He's the reason we still have you." Tony glanced at her. "He's the reason my roof needs a remodel," he said. "But yeah, he helped." He looked back at me serious now. "So what are you doing here exactly?" he asked. "Because everywhere I go, there you are. Thor's hammer, Harlem, my arc reactor now here. You following me, or are we just on the same weird mailing list?" "I follow battle," I said. "You stand where strong enemies appear. That is why we cross paths." He nodded slowly. "Comforting," he said, "in a very specific way." Barton leaned closer to Natasha and murmured, "I'm starting to feel underdressed." She murmured back, "You always feel underdressed when there's a god-level bruiser in the room." Banner watched Tony, then looked at me. "You going to try to test him too?" he asked, suspicion in his voice. I shook my head once. "No," I said. "He has not earned that yet. His potential is high, but his current power is limited. Testing him now would be a waste." Tony let out a breath, somewhere between relief and indignation. "I should be offended," he said, "but I'm not." "You will have time," I said. "You improve quickly. You learned from the suit's failures. When you reach a higher level, I will know. Then we will see how much punishment you can take." "Can't wait," he said dryly. Fury stepped into the center of the group, pulling everyone's attention. "This isn't a social hour," he said. "Banner, we need you in the lab. Stark, I want your eyes on our tech setups. Romanoff, Barton, you're on standby until I say otherwise. Battle Beast." He looked at me for a long second. "You stay out of my people's way," he finished. "If there's a fight big enough, you'll know. Until then, observe. Do not start anything." "I will not attack," I said, "unless something strong enough appears to justify it." Banner muttered, "That's not as comforting as you keep thinking it is." Tony unlatched part of his armor and let it start retracting piece by piece, metal shifting and folding away. Underneath, he wore a dark shirt and pants, the arc reactor in his chest glowing faintly through the fabric. He rolled his shoulder and winced. "Well," he said, "welcome to the unofficial support group, I guess. We've got the Angry Science Project, the assassin, the silent archer, the guy from the posters, and the lion who judges everyone. This is going to be interesting." "You talk too much," I said. He grinned faintly. "Someone has to fill the silence," he replied. Natasha's radio crackled softly. She pressed a finger to her earpiece, listening, then said, "Cap is on his way down. Fury wants him in the same room as the rest of them when you brief." Banner's shoulders tensed slightly at the mention. Tony perked up. "The legend himself," he said. "I should get his autograph before he punches me." "He has been punched enough this week," I said. Tony shot me a look. "Yeah," he said. "He mentioned you." I said nothing. Fury looked between them all. "Get moving," he said. "We have work to do before the next disaster hits." Natasha moved toward the exit leading to the lab wing, Banner walking beside her. She kept her voice low, asking him questions about gamma readings, tesseract energy, his limits. He answered reluctantly, hands moving as he tried to explain. Barton drifted toward a weapons rack at the side, checking over a case of specialized arrows, fingers running over the fletching with familiar care. Tony walked in the opposite direction toward a bank of consoles, pulling up displays without waiting for permission. His fingers flew across the controls. He muttered lines to himself about power sources and bandwidth. I stayed where I was for a moment, taking them all in. Banner, Stark, Romanoff, Barton, Rogers in another level, Fury watching over all. Pieces. Not yet a unit, not yet worthy as a true force, but each with their own potential, their paths, their strengths and limits. Not enough yet to make me feel the weight of a true challenge. But it was building. I turned and headed for the large bay doors, stepping out onto the outer platform and into the open air. The sky was clear. The wind carried faint traces of the city in the distance. I placed my hands on the railing and looked outward, letting the sounds of the base move behind me without pulling my focus. The strong were gathering. That was enough to keep me here. Chapter 17. The God with the Scepter. I felt the tesseract before they said its name. I was on the outer platform above the bay, standing at the railing, watching the sky. The air was calm. Engines from the lower levels rumbled under my feet. The world smelled of metal and exhaust. Then a new presence brushed against my senses. Energy. Not gamma, not arc, not Asgardian alone. Cold, focused power, straight and sharp. It came from far away, but it cut through distance. It pressed against my skin like a steady hand. The cube. I knew this world's path. I knew they had it in some buried facility, playing with what they did not understand. But knowing and feeling were different. I straightened slightly on the platform. My claws flexed against the rail. A small spark of anticipation moved through my chest. Inside, an alarm began to sound. Not a loud, blaring one. A layered series of tones, rising in priority. SHIELD systems shifted from calm to alert. Lights along the walls changed from steady white to pulsing yellow. Doors opened and shut. Footsteps quickened. Voices rose in volume, clipped and urgent. I turned away from the view and headed inside. Agents were already moving. Some ran toward the command levels, others toward the motor pools. No one tried to slow me down. They parted ahead of me like a current around a rock. I followed the flow toward the main control room. Screens lined the walls there. Banks of consoles filled the center. The space was crowded with operators, supervisors, techs. Every screen showed something different: satellite feeds, facility schematics, status logs, live camera views. On the central wall, one main feed showed a large underground chamber. The camera was tilted, like it had been struck. I recognized the place. Joint Dark Energy Facility, Pegasus. The Tesseract Chamber. The image shook as something slammed into the frame. Over the audio came voices, faint through the transmission. Fury's voice, one female, several male. Orders, questions. Then the cube flared. On the screen, blue light pulsed outward in waves. Equipment rattled. People shielded their eyes. The energy surged, then focused into a tight beam, punching upward and then folding. The portal formed. A figure dropped to the ground from the center of the light. Long black hair, green and gold armor, scepter in hand. Loki. I stepped closer to the screen, my eyes fixed on the image. Tex shuffled out of my way quickly. Agent Maria Hill stood at one of the front consoles. Her posture was rigid. Her eyes did not leave the feed. She glanced at me only once, just enough to recognize me, then back to the screen. Fury was on the monitor, nearer to the camera now, gun in hand. Loki rose to his feet. He looked around the chamber with calm, assessing eyes. Then he smiled. "Sir," one of the operators said to Hill, "we're getting destabilization readings. If that cube keeps cycling—" "Stay on the live feed," Hill answered sharply. "Do not cut, director's still in there." They did. We watched. Loki moved through the room with smooth confidence. The scepter's blade glowed blue. Guards fired. The shots did nothing that mattered. Loki's movements were precise, efficient. He was Hulk. He wasn't raw power crashing through obstacles. He was a blade cutting along a chosen line. He spoke. The audio was broken by static, but enough came through. Burdened with glorious purpose. The words were empty to me. There was no weight in them, only ego. He pointed the scepter at one of the guards and fired a beam. The man dropped. Then Loki's eyes went to the cube. I watched his body language closely. Hunger was there. Ambition, not simple bloodlust. He wanted something beyond this room. He stepped closer to Fury and the Tesseract. "It's a lot of energy for something so small," Fury said on the feed. "Oh, I think you'll find," Loki replied, voice smooth even through the distortion, "that it has more than enough power to do what I want." He turned the scepter and tapped it against a man's chest. Dr. Selvig. The scientist's eyes glowed blue. Mind control. Then Clint Barton stepped into view, aiming a rifle. Loki moved closer. Barton fired a few controlled shots, then hesitated when Loki spoke to him. I already knew what came next. I clenched my hand into a fist anyway when I saw it. Loki turned the scepter and touched the blade to Barton's chest. Barton's eyes went blue. He lowered his weapon and stood still. On the control room floor, one of the techs swore under his breath. "We've lost Barton," someone said. Hill's jaw tightened as she watched. "Get me all exits on that facility," she ordered. "If they move, track it. Now." Explosions rocked the image. Loki and his new servants moved through the chaos like it was nothing. The cube's energy destabilized the chamber. Equipment fell. The overhead supports cracked. The facility started to collapse. On screen, Fury ran for the exit with the briefcase holding the Tesseract. Barton, now controlled, chased him, firing with deadly precision at tires and engines and fuel tanks. Loki followed, scepter glowing. The feed broke for a second, then reconnected from a different angle. Cameras switched automatically to backup positions. The last thing we saw was the truck with Loki, Barton, and Selvig driving out into the night, dust and debris in its wake. Then the underground structure sank in, the earth folding over it. The feed went dead. Silence held the control room for 3 seconds. Then everything moved at once. Get me Director Fury's status, Hill snapped. I want a satellite sweep of that area, debris mapping, survivors, now. Operators scrambled. In the middle of the noise, Fury's voice came over the main speaker, broken but alive. "This is Fury," he said. "We've lost the Tesseract. Portal opened. Loki is here. He's got Barton and Selvig. Facility is gone." His voice was calm, but I heard anger there, controlled and dense. Hill grabbed a headset. "Sir, are you injured?" she asked. "I'm alive," Fury said. "That's enough. Get Phase 2 ready to move if we need it, and push the damn Avengers file to the top of the list." Hill's eyes flickered briefly to the side, where I stood, then back to her screen. She caught my gaze for a second. "You saw all that," she said. "Yes," I answered. "Thoughts?" she asked. "A god with a stolen weapon and a stolen mind control tool," I said. "He fights cleanly. He is not brute force. He is not yet at the level that interests me most, but he has tools that change the field, and the cube makes it worse." Hill nodded once, lips pressed in a thin line. "Director will want to talk to you," she said. "Soon." "I know," I said. The call switched to a secure line. Fury's voice grew more focused. "Hill," he said, "get Romanoff briefed. I want her in the air to find Banner." "Yes, sir," she said. "And Coulson," Fury continued, "bring him the Stark file. He'll know what to do." "Understood," a male voice replied, Coulson from another room. Fury paused for a second. "And someone tell our beast that the god he's been waiting for just picked a fight with the planet," he added. "I want to know if he's going to sit this one out or not." "He's already here," Hill said, glancing at me again. "Good," Fury said. "I'll get back to base as soon as I dig myself out of what's left of this place. Until then, you run point. Start the clock." The line went quiet. The control room did not. Orders flew in every direction. Natasha's location was pulled onto a map, then redirected to Calcutta. A file with Stark's data was sent to Coulson's station. Banner's last known whereabouts were cross-referenced. Barton's personal file was flagged with a red marker. Compromised. I stood and watched it all. Loki. I had not fought him yet. I knew what he could do from this world's history, but my body did not know him. My muscles did not know his weight. My bones did not know his strikes. He was not Hulk or Thor. His threat was different. I wanted to feel that difference. Hill stepped away from the main console and came to stand next to me. "You heard the man," she said. "He wants your answer. You chasing this guy or not?" I looked down at her. She was strong in her own way. Hard, controlled, loyal, not someone who wasted words. "Where is Loki now?" I asked. She tapped a few commands into her wrist device. "Based on last tracking," she said, "he's gone dark. We know the direction he left in. After that, no live feed. Barton knows how to avoid our eyes, and they have the cube. That makes it worse." "He will not hide," I said. "He wants to be seen. He will move soon. He needs tools, agents, a stage." "Yeah," she said quietly. "We're thinking the same thing." I shifted my weight slightly. My claws curled against the floor. Part of me wanted to go now, hunt him, tear apart whatever base he chose, rip the scepter from his hand and see if his own body had any worth without tricks. The rest of me was cold. I knew this path. I knew what Loki was building, not just himself, an army. Chitauri. If I hunted him now and ended him before he opened the door fully, this world would avert a war. That would be a victory for SHIELD, for Fury, for these humans. For me, it would be a smaller battle. If I waited until he summoned everything he could, until the sky itself opened above their city and poured enemies down, then the fight would be closer to what I deserved. I did not feel guilt at that thought. I did not feel shame. My purpose was simple. I was made for war, not for rescue, not for prevention. Hill watched me with a guarded expression. "You're thinking," she said. That's either very good or very bad. I am deciding, I said. There is a difference. She crossed her arms. So decide, she said. Because if you're coming with us, I need to know. And if you're not, I still need to know, so I can stop telling my people you're on our side. I am not on your side, I said calmly. I am on the side of the fight. I told Fury this. He accepted it. She exhaled through her nose. You're honest, at least, she said. I thought of Loki's eyes as he stepped out of the portal. Calm, confident, knowing more than he said. I thought of Hulk roaring in Harlem, hitting me with everything he had. Of Thor's hammer smashing into my shoulder. Of the destroyer's beam. Of the arc reactor's blast. This new god with the scepter had not shown his full power yet, but he would. I will not join the chase now, I said finally. I will not hunt a half-formed threat. You have soldiers for that. You have your new team for that. Let them find him. Let them test him. When he brings everything he can onto one field, when he stands at the head of something truly dangerous, then I will come. Hill stared at me, her mouth tightened. People are going to die between now and then, she said. You know that, right? Yes, I said. They will. They always do. That is your concern, not mine. I am not your guardian. I am your weapon when the enemy is strong enough to deserve me. Her eyes flashed with anger for a brief second. Then it hardened into something else, acceptance, or something close to it. You're a cold bastard, she said evenly. I am Battle Beast, I said. That is enough. She shook her head slightly. Fury, not going to like your answer, she said. He will understand it, I replied. He knew what I was when he chose to keep me here. She took a breath and let it out slowly. All right, she said. Then this is how it's going to go. We go after Loki. We lose resources. We lose time. We pull every enhanced, genius, and wild card we can get our hands on, and we throw them at this thing. She looked me straight in the eyes. When it gets too big for them, and it will, I'm calling you. And if you don't show up, then we're done. You and us. Clear. I will come, I said, when the fight is worthy. If it is not, you will not need me. She nodded, sharp and curt. Then we'll see how worthy our problems get, she said. Behind us, maps updated. Icons moved. One marker appeared over Stuttgart, another over the North Sea. Plans unfolded. Natasha's location shifted as she left for India. Stark's file opened on a central display. Peggy's file came up briefly in a corner, then disappeared. Barton's tagged status remained red. Banner would be brought into the light soon. Stark would be dragged in. Steve was already here. The pieces of their team would move toward each other because this god had forced them to. I stepped back from the central consoles and made my way to the exit of the control room. No one stopped me. As I left, I heard Hill giving fresh orders. Romanoff is wheels up in 10, she said. Stark is next on the list. Get Barton's last transmissions before he went dark. Get me Selvig's personal notes. I want every file on Loki's previous visit to this plane, and flag our beast as non-deploying for the current chase. For now. Her words followed me into the corridor. I walked out of the core of the facility and back toward the outer platform. The air felt cooler outside. The sky had darkened. A few stars were visible in the gaps between clouds. I put my hands on the railing again and looked out. Loki was moving somewhere out there, building his plan, grabbing mines, weapons, bridges. These humans would fight him first. They would test themselves against him. Some would fail. Some would break. Some would rise. When he finally stood in front of them with an army at his back and the cube behind him, when all their strength gathered in one place to stop him, then I would walk into that war. That was where I belonged. Until then, I would watch. Chapter 18. The Cage Above the Clouds. The helicarrier rose under me, like a slow-moving beast. I felt it through the deck plates as I stood in the lower hangar. Engines low at first, then building. Vibrations ran up through my legs. The air changed. Pressure shifted. The faint smell of seawater thinned, replaced by cold air from higher altitudes. I looked up. Gantry cranes crossed the ceiling. Catwalks ran along the walls. SHILD had cleared this entire lower bay for me. No jets parked, no crates nearby. Just space. Enough room to move if they decided to point me at something. They had reinforced the walls here. Extra support beams, extra bracing. It would slow me down if I wanted out. It would not stop me. They knew that. This was not a cell. It was a boundary they hoped I chose to respect. The side door opened. Fury came in first. He walked with his usual steady pace, coat trailing slightly. Hill followed 2 steps behind, tablet in hand. 2 tactical agents took positions at the door and stayed there, hands near their weapons but not touching them. I turned to face them fully. "Enjoying the flight?" Fury asked. "It is quiet," I said. "No battle, only noise." He nodded once. "That's going to change sooner than I'd like," he said. "Loki is on board, so is the Tesseract." I felt the cube's energy again now that he said it. It pulsed through the helicarrier's structure in small waves, faint but constant. The Asgardian presence was clearer. Loki's signature was sharp and thin. The cube's was heavy and cold. "Where is he?" I asked. "The god." "Glass cage," Hill answered. "Detention level, 1 floor above this bay midship, designed for someone like Banner, or you." Her eyes flickered over my frame, briefly. Fury's mouth tightened. "We put Loki in a box meant to drop out of the sky if he misbehaves," he said. "It's not perfect, but it sends a message." "He does not care about your messages," I said. "He cares about control and games." "You've never met him," Fury said. "I know his type," I replied. He studied me for a second. "You wanted a clear line from me," he said. "So here it is. Until I say otherwise, you stay on this level. You can watch the feeds. You do not go near Loki's cell. You do not go near Banner when he's agitated. You do not start fights with my people. If this turns sideways big enough, I'll call you. Until then, you sit on your hands." "I do not need your rules," I said. "I already know my limits. I will not break your toy unless the enemy is worth it." Hill's jaw twitched slightly at the word. Fury kept his tone even. "Good," he said, "because if you go through my decks looking for a warm-up, I won't waste time arguing with you. I'll drop you from this ship and see if you bother to come back." "You could try," I said. His eye met mine. There was no fear in it, only calculation and steady defiance. "I would," he said. I respected that. Hill tapped a few commands on a tablet. "We've routed internal camera access to a station down here," she said. "You want to watch them interact with the prisoner, you can. Loki, Stark, Rogers, Banner, Thor if he shows up again." "He will," I said. "He will come for his brother." Fury raised an eyebrow. "That's a strong guess," he said. "It is not a guess," I replied. He accepted that with a short nod. "Hill, show him the station," he said. "Then get back upstairs. I want eyes on every system." "Yes, sir," she said. Fury turned and left. The door closed behind him, leaving me with Hill and the 2 agents. She moved to a console built into the wall. Several monitors were stacked vertically, each dark. She keyed in commands, and they flickered to life. Camera feeds from around the helicarrier. Corridors, labs, the bridge, a glass-walled detention cell. Loki. He sat on a bench in the center of the transparent cage, elbows on his knees, hands loosely folded. The scepter was not visible. They had taken it from him. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes were not. They moved with slow attention across every detail of his surroundings. Hill glanced from the feed to me. "You do anything to this console," she said, "and I write it up as a hostile act. Don't touch it." "I do not break tools I use," I said. She nodded once, then left without more words. I stood in front of the monitors. One screen locked onto Loki's cell. Another rotated between lab views. Stark and Banner would be there soon. A third showed the main bridge, with Fury and Hill in command positions. A fourth cycled through corridors and open spaces, Natasha moving from section to section, Barton absent from all feeds. I focused on Loki. After some minutes, Fury walked into the detention level on the feed. His reflection followed him in the glass. Loki looked up as he approached. There was no audio on this channel at first. I watched their faces. Fury's expression was flat, set. Loki's lips curled in something close to amusement. I adjusted the feed with a touch on the console. The sound came in, slightly compressed, but clear. "Not the first time you've been in a cage," Fury was saying. Loki's voice answered, smooth and calm. "This is not a cage," he said. "This is a little room, a room with a view." Fury tapped the glass with a finger. "In an hour, if you try to break out," he said, "this room drops out of the bottom of this ship. You know how that ends." Loki stood up slowly. He walked closer, hands behind his back, head tilted. "You are very proud of this little threat," he said. "You think fear keeps order. That is why you fail." I listened to the back and forth. Fury kept his sentences short, grounded. Loki's thoughts were longer, polished, weaving around the words like a net. He talked of power, of purpose, of humans kneeling. He believed in his own superiority. I had seen that in others. It was not interesting by itself. What interested me was his restraint. He did not pace. He did not shout. He handled his anger like a blade, not a club. Fury left. Loki went back to the bench and sat down again, patient. I shifted my gaze to the lab feed. Stark and Banner stood at a large circular table with the scepter laid out nearby. Screens surrounded them in a ring filled with code, schematics, field data. Stark was in constant motion, hands flicking across holograms. Banner was slower, more deliberate, but his eyes moved just as fast. Rogers stepped into the frame a few minutes later, walk firm, expression skeptical. He watched Stark's antics with a mix of annoyance and confusion. They exchanged words. "We're not a team, we're a time bomb." I knew this part. Natasha came and went, quiet and focused. She kept checking Barton's data, her eyes hardening each time. They argued about weapons, about the cube, about trust. Tony poked at Banner's temper, testing him, nudging him, trying to see where the line was. Bruce forced himself calm, breathing deep, jaw tightening more than once. I listened and watched, but there was nothing for me to do. They were still just pieces in motion. Loki sat alone in his cage. He had not yet forced them into real unity. They did not yet move as one. I stepped back from the console and paced slowly across the hangar, then returned, then paced again. The deck flexed faintly under my weight. It calmed me, this simple rhythm. Then I felt it. Asgardian energy, sudden and sharp, cutting through the ship. Not Loki's. Thor's. It hit like a pulse, moving across my skin and through my bones. The hair along my arms lifted. The air pressure changed slightly, all small signs that my body recognized. I looked back at the monitors. On the external feed, a small object moved toward the helicarrier, too fast, trailing streaks of disturbed air. Lightning flashed in the clouds around it. The camera adjusted, zoomed. Thor slammed onto the top of a Quinjet, carrying Loki and his escort back from Stuttgart. Metal buckled under his landing. The feed jolted until the operator corrected. The next series of images showed what I remembered. Thor ripping Loki from their custody, their confrontation on the rock below, then Stark and Rogers entering the fight. Lightning against repulsors, shield against hammer, blows exchanged that shook the forest. I watched it again with interest. I could see each movement clearly, the weight of each hit, the choices made in each second. Their strengths and mistakes showed plainly. When that was done and Loki surrendered, the feeds returned to internal helicarrier views. Loki was brought to the glass cage. Thor followed later, escorted by agents with weapons that would not matter if he chose to ignore them. He walked with calm authority, not swagger. There was pride in his steps, but also restraint. I knew his worth. I watched as he came to stand outside the cell. Loki stood inside, hands loose, body relaxed, eyes sharp. They spoke. Thor's voice carried through the speakers, heavy with frustration and buried affection. "We were raised together," he said. "We played together. We fought together. Do you remember none of that?" Loki answered with cold amusement. "I remember you tossing me into the shadows," he said. "I remember you being favored. I remember what I am now." He walked circles inside the cage, always keeping his shoulders loose, like a predator choosing its moment. Thor's jaw clenched, his fists curled. He did not break the glass. He did not shout at the guards. He spoke, and that was all. He was holding back because he still loved this brother. That kept him from acting fully. I felt a small spark of dissatisfaction. Emotional ties dulled warriors. But I also knew it could make him stronger later when he resolved them. I watched them until their conversation ended and Thor left the cell level. I stayed where I was. I did not go to meet him. Part of me wanted to. He had sworn to return for a fight. He was here now, above me, close. The memory of his hammer in my bones was still sharp. The thought of crossing fists and steel again tightened my muscles with anticipation. But this was not our battlefield. If I challenged him now in this flying base, SHIELD would panic. The team would fracture more. Loki would get something he did not deserve yet, a distraction and a gift. I was not here to make the gods work easier. I folded my arms and fixed my gaze on the monitors again. The day slid forward. Arguing in the lab grew worse. Stark needled Steve. Steve criticized Stark. Banner's hands trembled once as he held onto a rail, then relaxed again. The scepter sat in the room, quiet, its influence leaking into the edges of the air. Fury joined them, confrontations swirling between them all. Their voices rose. Accusations flew. They dug into each other's fears and choices. I watched their faces. Stark's anger was sharp, defensive. Steve's was steady, moral. Banner's was nervous, strained. Fury's was controlled, irritated. Thor's was tired and wrapped around his brother. Even Natasha's focus was being pulled by Barton's compromised state. They were not ready. And Loki saw it. In his cage, he smiled slightly as he watched through the cameras he knew were there. Hill passed through my hangar once to check connections. She saw me still at the console. "You're not going up there," she said. "No," I answered. "Even with Thor on board," she said. "You're serious about waiting?" "Yes," I said. "If we fight now, it will not be right. Too many weak pieces on the board. The enemy is not showing his full strength. That is not the fight I want." She gave a brief nod. "At least you're consistent," she said. She left again. Hours passed. In the lab, Banner toyed with the scepter without realizing it, fingers brushing the handle. Stark argued about surveillance. Steve pushed back about weapons. Their tempers flared more easily, pulled by the cube and Loki's influence. The helicarrier held steady in the sky, engines humming. On the detention level, Loki waited. I stayed below. My muscles were loose but prepared. Every sound from the hull, every change in the vibrations, registered in me without conscious effort. I did not pace now. I stood still, breathing slow. This was the last calm, before Loki struck at this ship, from within and without. I knew what was coming. I would let it come. Loki's real value was not in this cage. It was in the army he had waiting and the gate he would open. That would be the moment where my presence mattered most. Until then, I remained as Fury had asked, silent, watching, unmoving. I was not his soldier. But for now, our goals remained close enough. Chapter 19. The sky begins to break. The first sign was not the alarm. It was the change in the air. I stood in front of the console in the lower hangar, watching the monitors. The helicarrier had settled into a cruising rhythm, engines steady, hull vibrations even, air pressure consistent. I knew the feel of it now. Then it shifted. A tremor ran through the deck. Small but wrong, not like turbulence. A sharp jolt, like something had struck the skin of the ship from outside. Half a second later, the alarms began. Red lights flashed along the walls. A layered tone sounded across the deck, higher priority than before. On the monitors, warning icons popped up over internal schematics. I focused on the external feed. A Quinjet transponder tagged as friendly approached fast on one of the screens. Too fast. Its course lined up with one of the carrier's engines. No request for clearance. No deceleration. I recognized the pilot's file label at the corner of the feed. Barton. Compromised. I watched his jet sweep in low along the underside of the helicarrier. A flash from its front guns lit up the frame. Tracers tore into one of the massive engine nacelles. Another flash. A small shape launched from the jet, glowing faintly. The arrow. It hit the engine structure and vanished inside. A heartbeat passed. Then the explosion hit. The entire ship shuddered. The deck lurched under my feet, harder now. Overhead girders rattled. Crates slid in distant bays. On the schematic feed, one engine marker flickered from green to yellow, then to red. Impact starboard side, a voice shouted over the internal speakers. We've lost thrust in engine 3. The hangar bay lights flickered once, then held. I braced my feet and stayed standing. Smaller bodies would have stumbled. I did not. More alarms shrieked. Automatic doors began to cycle shut in some sections, locking down bulkheads. On another monitor, the lab feed shook as the floor under Stark and Banner tilted slightly. Stark grabbed the table for balance. Banner caught himself on a railing. Steve widened his stance. Thor simply shifted his weight without trouble. Engine 3 is down, a tech cried on the bridge feed. We're losing altitude. Fury snapped orders. Get Iron Man on that engine. I want Cap with him. Everyone else lock this ship down. Find the intruders. The ship continued to roll slowly to one side, like a wounded beast. I felt the tilt in my bones. I could ride a fall from this height. The air would burn for a moment, then cool. The ocean would not kill me. But if this ship crashed now, the Tesseract, Loki, Banner, Stark, Rogers, Romanoff, all of them would be scattered or dead. That would weaken the coming battle. I did not want that. On the lab feed, Banner bent over the table, hands gripping its edge. His face twisted in pain. The stress, the impact, the scepter's influence pushing at him, it all came together. I watched his fingers clutch the metal, knuckles whitening. His breathing changed, turning rough. His shoulders trembled. Stark tried to talk him down. Steve stepped closer, cautious but firm. I could see it clearly. He was close. Another jolt hit the ship. It was small, but it tipped the balance inside him. Banner's head dropped, his body convulsed. The change started. I saw his muscles swell under skin. Veins darkened, spine bowed. His hands warped, fingers thickening, nails blackening. His jaw stretched, teeth lengthening. His shirt tore at the seams. Then the lab view exploded into motion. Hulk ripped out. Stark flew back from the shock wave. Steve was thrown sideways. The ring of screens shattered. The table flipped. The camera view cut for a second, then returned with a wider angle. Hulk roared. The sound came through the speakers, deep and harsh. Even through the filtered audio, it pressed against my chest. He smashed down through the lab level, tearing through machinery and walls. He landed in a lower compartment, tearing metal up with his hands, rage focused on whatever moved. My claws curled against the console. I had fought Hulk before. I remembered his fists slamming into me, his feet pounding the street, his body absorbing everything I gave him. Seeing him loose again stirred something inside me. Not fear, not worry, hunger. He was stronger now than in Harlem. I could feel it in the sound of his roar, more present, less confused. Part of me wanted to go to him, immediately. Another part stayed still. Fury's voice snapped over the internal channel. "Contain that engine's issue first," he barked. "Stark, Rogers, get on 3. Thor, get to Banner. Romanoff, find Barton. Everyone else, hold your sectors." He did not call my name. The helicarrier kept dropping. On one feed, Iron Man blasted out of the lower launch bay and dove toward the failing engine. On another, Steve ran through the interior toward the manual controls. On a third, Hulk rampaged through the lower levels, smashing bulkheads, tearing apart passages. Natasha ran from him, breath ragged, face pale, moving through tight corridors as he chased her. He hit a wall, and the whole room I was in shook. I rode the impact easily, but the scale of his strength was clear. If he kept this up unchecked, the ship itself could break apart. I weighed my options. If I obeyed Fury, I would stay here, hidden, waiting for the ship to stabilize. Let them handle Hulk, the strike team, the engine, all of it. Then I would reappear when Loki brought his army to Earth. If I broke his order and joined now, I would enter the fight in a wounded metal box, half full of panicked humans and half full of unstable weapons. There would be limited room. Many targets I did not care about. It was not the battlefield I wanted. But if this ship fell now, the fight I wanted later might never come. My fingers tightened on the console edge, leaving shallow grooves in the metal. Another tremor rolled through the deck. This one had a grinding quality, like metal under too much strain. Anger flared in me, not at them, not at Hulk, not at the enemy, but at the idea of losing the future battle to something as clumsy as structural failure. That I would not accept. I stepped away from the console. The two agents at the door flinched when I turned toward them. "Stay out of the fight," one said, voice tight. "Director's orders, your bay is locked." I walked straight past them. The door was not locked. Fury had trusted me to obey more than he feared me breaking out. That was his mistake. I hit the door panel with my hand, hard enough to make it complain, not enough to break it. The door slid open. I stepped into the corridor. The ship slanted slightly under my feet now, nose down, turning to correct. Klaxons blared overhead. Red strips of light flashed along the walls. Agents ran past, some with weapons, some with tools, some with portable med kits. They saw me and moved aside quickly, some not even trying to hide their fear. I ignored them. I did not go up toward Hulk. I did not go to Loki. I moved toward the center of the ship. I had felt the stress in the frame. This floating fortress was trying to hold itself together with one engine down and one at risk. I did not know their engineering, but I knew weight and force. If I could brace something critical, even for a short time, it might keep this flying platform intact long enough for my future fight to remain possible. I followed the pull in my bones to where the strain was greatest. Down 2 levels, through a heavy hatch, along a maintenance corridor that smelled of oil and burnt metal. I reached a space where I could feel the structure flex. It was a large chamber, crisscrossed with support beams and structural ribs. Thick cables ran along the walls. One corner showed fresh damage, visible cracks where a section of the support frame had been knocked loose by the earlier impact. 2 engineers were there already, strapped into harnesses, trying to reinforce the gap with temporary braces. Their hands shook as the hull groaned. "Get that bolt locked," one shouted. "It won't line up," the other yelled back. The whole sections shifted. The deck lurched again. Both of them lost their balance. Their harness lines caught them before they fell. I stepped into the room. They saw me and froze. "What the?" one breathed. The other whispered, "No way." I ignored their fear and moved past them, straight toward the cracked joint. The support rib they had separated from its bracket. The gap was small, but it mattered. The surrounding beams took extra strain. The whole area vibrated with tension. Do not move, I said to them. You will be crushed if you stay close. They looked at each other. They obeyed. They scrambled back toward the door, hearts hammering. I bent my legs and planted my feet against the deck. My claws dug into the metal slightly. I reached up and gripped the separated support rib with both hands, one on each side of the crack. The metal was thick, heavy, built to hold a flying fortress together. I squeezed. The rib screamed. I pulled. The bracket shifted back. The gap began to close by fractions. My muscles burned pleasantly. My arms shook with the effort, not from weakness, but from the weight I was forcing back into alignment. The ship's tilt changed again as the pilots fought the failing engine. The strain on the frame increased. I took it. The engineers stared from the doorway, wide-eyed. You, one breathed. You're holding the ship together. No, I said. I am holding this part together. The rest is your problem. They looked at each other again. Get the brace in place, one said suddenly. Now, while he has it. The other snapped out of his daze. Right, he said. They grabbed their tools and moved in cautiously, staying clear of my legs and arms. The floor still shuddered under all of us. The air vibrated with the effort of the engines. I held the rib in place while they slammed a new bracket over the joint. Bolts clanged into place under their impacts. They tightened them as fast as they could with powered tools. My shoulders burned harder now. I felt the strain move across my back like a slow fire. It felt honest. Almost there, one shouted over the noise. Keep it steady. I am steady, I said. 5 more seconds. 10. Done, the other yelled. Back away. I eased my grip gradually, testing the hold. The rib stayed in place. The strain shifted from my arms back into the structure. The groaning in the walls lessened slightly. I released the beam fully and stepped back. The metal hummed in a healthier rhythm now. Both engineers sagged with relief. Thanks, one said, voice shaking. I looked at him. If this ship falls, I lose my fight, I said. That is why I helped, not for you. He gave a weak, crooked smile. I don't care why, he said. I'm just glad we're not falling apart. I left them there and moved out into the corridor again. The helicarrier was still in trouble, but less so. The main engine's status icon on the schematic feed flickered between red and orange now. Stark was out there, inside the engine guts. Steve was on the controls. I could hear the whine of the turbines trying to spin back up. On another feed, Hulk's rampage continued. He chased Natasha into a maintenance section, tearing through pipes and decks. Thor intercepted him, dropping in front of him with hammer in hand. Their clash shook the ship. I felt each blow in the floor under my feet. On the monitor, Thor took Hulk's punches and gave them back with interest. Hammer to jaw, fist to ribs. Hulk slammed him into the hangar floor and tried to crush him. Thor fought back with everything he had. I watched their exchange, teeth baring slightly in appreciation. It was a good fight, incomplete but good. Then Hulk was drawn away by the damaged jet, baited by its guns. He leapt after it, ending up off the helicarrier and falling into the distance. I stayed where I was, in the lower corridors, watching the monitors as the battles unfolded. Natasha fought Barton in a brutal close-range struggle and broke Loki's hold on him. Stark and Steve managed to restart the engine and stabilize the ship. Loki moved from his cell's level through misdirection and violence, tricking Thor into the glass cage and then dropping him out of the sky. Coulson confronted Loki with the destroyer weapon and paid the price. The helicarrier held in the air. It was damaged, people were hurt, systems were strained. But it did not fall. I felt my muscles cool and relax one by one. The ache in my arms from holding the support rib faded quickly. My body restored itself, smoothing out the residual sting. I made my way back to the lower hangar. The 2 agents at the door gave me a look that was a mix of anger and gratitude. "You were supposed to stay put," one said, voice low. "I did not," I said. He clenched his jaw. "If you'd gone after Banner or Loki, we'd be having a different conversation," he said. But the chief engineer called up, said the big white thing kept the spine from cracking. "He can file whatever report he likes," I said. I stepped back into the hangar and returned to the console. The monitors showed the aftermath now. On the bridge, Fury spoke to the team, his face set in a hard line. Stark stood stiff, hands on the table. Steve looked tired and angry. Banner was gone, where Hulk had fallen. Thor was gone, where the cage had dropped. Natasha and Barton stood side by side, bruised and focused. They listened as Fury told them about Coulson. It hit them harder than any blow in the fight had. I watched their faces as they each absorbed it. Stark's jaw clenched. His eyes went distant, thinking fast. Steve's hands balled into fists at his sides. Natasha's shoulders stiffened. She refused to show her grief openly, but it was there in the tightened muscles around her eyes. Barton looked down once, jaw working. Fury used that moment to push them toward New York. I did not need to listen to every word. I knew what he would say. I had heard enough of his speeches by now to recognize the rhythm. They would go. Loki would open a door. The Chitauri would pour through. The real battle was close. Hill appeared on one of the secondary feeds, speaking with a damage control team. She looked tired, but her voice stayed firm. She glanced at another camera, then at her tablet. A moment later, one of the screens in front of me switched to a direct link. Her face filled it. "You broke orders," she said. "No greeting, no preamble." "Yes," I said, "I did." "You also prevented a critical support failure," she added, voice flat. "Engineers say if you hadn't been there, we might have lost the spine. That would have taken us down no matter what Stark did outside." "That is why I acted," I said. "I did not do it for you. I did it so the war to come would still have its players." She nodded once. "Fury knows," she said. "He's not happy about you leaving your bay, but he's not throwing you off the ship." "He would fail if he tried," I said. "Maybe," she said, "but he'd still try." I accepted that. Hill looked off screen, listening to someone speak, then back at me. "We're heading to New York," she said. "Loki's plan is clearer now. He's going to use the Tesseract to open a gate above the city. He's bringing an army." "I know," I said. "Then you know what Fury's going to ask," she said. "And you know what you said before." "Yes," I said again. "I told him I would come when the fight was large enough. This is that fight." She studied my expression. "You sound more focused," she said. "The enemy is finally showing his real strength," I said. "That matters." She gave a short exhale. "Then get ready," she said. "When we reach New York and that portal opens, no one cares about orders anymore. We'll throw everything we have at it. That includes you." "Yes," I said. "I will be there." The feed cut. I stepped back from the console and rolled my shoulders. My body felt good, loose, warmed by effort but not drained. The helicarrier's hum had steadied. The tilt was gone. We moved through the sky with purpose. Below my feet, hundreds of humans worked to patch the wounds. They taped cables, welded plates, carried stretchers, replaced fuses. Their efforts were frantic but determined. Above me, a team was forming itself out of grief and anger. Soon, they would be thrown into a battle they could barely imagine. I would be in that battle with them. Not as one of them. As myself, Chapter 20, drop over the broken city. The helicarrier moved with purpose now. The vibrations under my feet were steady, controlled. The engines no longer struggled. They drove us forward hard. The smell of burned circuits and scorched metal still hung faintly in the lower decks, but the worst damage had been patched. I stood alone in the lower hangar, in front of the console wall. The main feed showed New York from orbit, satellite eyes zooming in on Manhattan. The Stark Tower logo was clear on one structure. Nearby blocks were marked with overlay grids and highlighted zones, traffic patterns, evacuation routes, points of interest. Another feed showed the team. On the helicarrier's briefing deck, Stark, Rogers, Romanoff, and Barton stood around a table. Fury faced them. Hill stood slightly behind him. The audio was on. They needed the push, Fury said. Coulson died believing in this idea, in you, to see if they could work together when it mattered. I watched their faces. Stark looked down at the blood-smeared cards. His jaw clenched. Something shifted behind his eyes. Guilt and resolve mixed there in a way I recognized. Roger's expression was tight, steady, anger and purpose balanced. Natasha's gaze dropped for a second, then rose again hard. Barton's fists stayed clenched at his sides. His eyes were quiet and focused now that Loki's control had broken. They were making their decision. They would go. That was enough. I did not need to hear the rest. The door at the far side of the hangar slid open. Hill walked in, stride brisk, tablet under one arm, headset in place. Two deck crew followed her, moving fast but controlled. Her eyes found me immediately. "We've got our target," she said. "New York, Stark Tower. Loki's opening his door there." "I know," I said. "I have been watching." She nodded once. "Good," she said. "Then you know why I'm here. We're prepping a Quinjet for you, dedicated run. No passengers, no cargo, just you and the drop." She jerked her chin toward the far end of the bay. A Quinjet sat there, nose pointed toward the exit doors. Its side ramp was down. A small crew worked around it, checking the landing gear, adjusting the rear structure, locking down anything loose. They had cleared most of the interior. No seats on the floor, no cargo racks, just open space and reinforcement plates bolted along the deck and sides. The pilot's compartment was sealed off with a thicker bulkhead than usual. "You want to fly me over the portal and drop me into the fight," I said. "That's the idea," Hill replied. "You told Fury you'd be there when the enemy showed its full hand. This is it. Loki opens that hole, an army comes through. That qualifies." "Yes," I said, "it does." I felt a small lift in my chest. Not excitement in the human sense. A tightening, a sharpening. The long waiting was almost over. Hill handed the tablet to one of the deck crew and came closer. "There are conditions," she said. I looked down at her and said nothing. She spoke anyway. "You go when we say," she said. "Not before, not during approach, not because you're bored. You wait until we confirm the portal is fully active and the enemy is pouring through." "That is when I would jump anyway," I said. "Dropping into a half-finished battle is pointless." "Second," she continued, "you aim for the worst of it. Highest concentration of hostiles, away from evac routes, away from crowds if possible. I know you don't care about collateral damage. We do. This is our compromise." "I will go where the fight is thickest," I said. "That is always my aim. Civilians should be running by then." "Some will," she said. "Some won't. Do what you're going to do. But if I see you go out of your way to hit them, we end whatever this is after today. Permanently." I held her gaze. "I do not hunt insects," I said. "I have told you this. Weak, screaming crowds do nothing for me. They do not test me. They do not prove anything. I will not waste a blow on them unless they stand in the path of my real target." She watched my face closely, then accepted it with a short nod. "All right," she said. "Then we have an understanding for this drop." "One more thing," she added. "If you go down there and decide the fight not worthy halfway through, you don't leave the team stranded. You leave when the main threat is broken, not before." "If the main threat breaks," I said, "the fight is over. I will not leave early." "Good," she replied. "Then suit yourself." She turned toward the Quinjet and gestured to the crew. "Reinforce the rear ramp hinges," she ordered. "We don't know how he's going out, but I don't want the whole door ripped off in one move." "Yes, ma'am," one of the techs said. He grabbed a tool kit and jogged to the rear of the craft. I walked toward the Quinjet. My steps were slow and heavy. The deck vibrated slightly with each one. The crew gave me space, eyes tracking me as I came closer. The Quinjet looked smaller than before when compared to my size, but it was sturdy enough for what it needed to do. The interior was open, as Hill had said. Reinforced floor, minimal loose gear, tie-down points along the walls. I placed one hand on the ramp and pressed down gently. The metal flexed, held, creaked under the weight. It would handle my landing during flight if the pilot kept his movements smooth. The pilot sat inside the forward compartment, helmet on, glancing back through the small internal window. His eyes widened when he saw me. He swallowed once, then tried to control his expression. Hill stepped up near the cockpit door and tapped the side, getting his attention. "This is Lieutenant Parks," she said to me. "He will be your pilot today. He flies, you drop. You do not touch his ship without cause." I looked into the forward compartment. Parks' hands tightened on the controls, knuckles light against the stick. "You get me over the thickest part of the fight," I said, "and I will not tear your craft apart around you." He tried to smile and failed. "Yes, sir," he said. I stepped inside and moved to the middle of the cargo area. There was no point sitting. I stood, legs planted, one hand on an overhead brace. Hill spoke quietly to Parks through the open cockpit. "You stick to the path Stark and Rogers clear," she said. "Stay just high enough to avoid direct small arms fire, just low enough to make his jump workable. When he's gone, you pull back and wait for further orders. If he refuses to leave your ship, call me." "Yes, ma'am," Parks said. Hill turned back to me. "When the drop light goes green," she said, "you move, not before." "I heard you the first time," I said. She studied me for a second longer, then gave a short nod. "Good hunting, then," she said. "Don't break my city more than you have to." I said nothing. She stepped back off the ramp. The crew cleared away, giving the Quinjet room. The ramp began to rise, pulled by hydraulic arms. The opening narrowed. The hangar fell away behind me, replaced by the enclosed metal of the aircraft. The ramp locked with a solid clank. Inside, the lights shifted from bright white to a dimmer, steady glow. The engines spun up, their pitch rising. The floor trembled under my feet. Parks' voice came over the internal channel. "Quinjet 7 moving to launch position," he said. "Cargo secured. Special asset on board." "Copy 7, a controller replied. "You are cleared for launch. Follow designated path to Zone Alpha. Await further instructions from Hill on arrival." The Quinjet lurched as it lifted. We rose vertically first, clearing the deck. The sensation pressed briefly against my knees. Then the nose dipped forward and the vectored thrusters shifted, pushing us ahead. I kept my stance wide, hand on the brace, body relaxed around the motion. The vibration through the hull was familiar by now. The rhythm of the engines matched the ones I had felt in other SHIELD craft, just tuned slightly higher for speed. There were no windows in the main bay, but a small monitor on the side wall showed an external view for the pilot's awareness. It also showed enough for me to see the path. The helicarrier shrank behind us as we accelerated. Clouds rushed past. The ocean rolled far below, a dark sheet broken by faint white lines. I watched the monitor and listened. The internal comm channel carried chatter from different sources, filtered and prioritized. Hill coordinating air paths. Stark's voice coming in occasionally with quick comments. Rogers, steady tone responding. Natasha and Barton checking gear. Banner was not on the line. He had fallen in a different direction. Thor's voice did not come through yet. He was somewhere else, moving by his own means. We flew. Minutes passed. Approaching Manhattan airspace, Parks reported. His voice was tight but controlled. Visual on smoke columns. Traffic is gone. Streets are jammed. Evac seems partial at best. Stay on the vector, Hill said over the line. We have multiple assets inbound. Stark is already approaching the tower. Do not cross his path. Copy that, Parks answered. I moved closer to the small monitor. The city appeared below, growing larger with each second. Towers packed close together, bridges reaching across water, streets full of frozen cars and moving specks. Smoke rose from several places already. One plume came from near Stark Tower, dark against the sky. The tower itself stood tall in the center of the image. Its top was altered now, an open circular frame built around the roof, machinery glowing blue. The tesseract sat at its heart, energy pouring upward in a sharp beam. The portal had not opened fully yet, but it was close. Blue light gathered in a circle above the tower. The air around it bent unnaturally. Stark's voice cut in, closer and clearer now. "Jarvis," he said, "you ever hear the story about flying too close to the sun?" "A sad story, sir," the AI replied. "I would avoid repeating it." Their banter faded as the channel shifted. "Stark is on final approach to the tower," Hill said. "Romanoff, Barton, Rogers, you're on track to hit the streets below. Thor is untracked. Tesseract activity is increasing. All air assets hold outside 3-block radius until I say otherwise. We don't know what that portal does to flight surfaces yet." Parks swallowed audibly. "Ma'am, that includes us?" he asked. "For now," Hill replied. "Hold position above the outer ring, 1,500 feet. Stay mobile. You're on standby until we see what comes through." "Yes, ma'am," he said. Our Quinjet slowed. The engine's pitch changed. The city stopped growing rapidly in the monitor and settled into a slow drift as we circled. I watched Stark on another small side feed. He landed on the tower balcony and walked inside, armor shining. He confronted Loki in the upper room. Words passed between them. Loki tried to take his mind. The arc reactor deflected it. Then Loki threw Stark through a window. The suit snapped to him mid-fall. He flew back into range. The device around the tesseract fired fully. The beam shot straight into the sky. The portal opened. The circle above the tower flared bright, then tore wide. The space beyond turned dark, filled with movement. Dozens, then hundreds of Chitauri craft moved on the other side, hovering in readiness. Something larger swam behind them. "What's our status?" Fury's voice snapped over the wide channel. "Portal is fully active," Hill said. "Reading massive energy foreign to this planet. Objects coming through now." On the monitors, the first wave broke into our sky. Small Chitauri chariots shot through the opening, engines whining, bodies hunched and armored. They peeled off in groups, diving toward the streets, firing energy blasts that tore into buildings and cars. Then one of the Leviathans followed. It forced its way through the gap, massive and armored, moving with heavy certainty. Its jaws opened as it emerged, releasing a thunder of sound and energy. The city shook under it. The feed of the streets showed people running, cars crashing, fire blooming. "This is it," Hill said. She switched to our internal channel. "Quinjet 7, she called. "You are cleared for deployment. Repeat, we are green for special asset drop." Park's hands tightened on his controls. "Copy, green for drop," he said. His voice was careful. "Asset, you hear that?" "Yes," I said. "Open the ramp." "Bringing us into position," he replied. "Hang on." The Quinjet's engines roared louder. The whole craft tilted forward and then banked, moving from its holding circle into a direct approach vector over the outer edge of the combat zone. I felt the shift in acceleration. The floor slid slightly under my feet as the craft turned. I compensated automatically. Through the monitor, I saw the path we were taking. We aimed not directly at the tower, but at a corridor slightly behind and to the side of one of the Leviathans. It moved along an avenue, smashing through signs and smaller structures, Chitauri chariots flanking it like insects around a moving mass. Explosions bloomed along nearby streets. Stark shot beams from his suit, hitting chariots, smashing them into walls. Rogers and Natasha moved on the ground, directing civilians, hitting targets where they could. Barton perched on a high rise, loosing arrows with perfect timing. They were busy. They could not be everywhere. Parks spoke again, louder now over the increasing noise. Approaching drop zone, he said. Altitude 1,500 and falling, speed steady, lining up for clean fall line. He hit a control. The rear ramp unlocked with a heavy clunk and began to lower. Wind punched into the cabin, hot with smoke and dust from below. The engine roar mixed with distant gunfire, explosions, and Chitauri shrieks. I moved toward the opening. As the ramp lowered, more of the city came into view physically, not just through the monitor. Towers stretched out below, some intact, some burning. Streets were full of overturned cars and scattered debris. Small human shapes ran wherever there was space. Closer to the tower, the real battle gathered. Chitauri craft swarmed in packs. Energy blasts lit the air. The Leviathan I had seen on the monitor now dominated the forward view, moving along a street directly under our flight path, armored body glinting in the light of fire and portal energy. It was big. Not Hulk big, not Destroyer big, different. A long, armored mass that could tear through buildings if it chose. Jesus, Parks muttered under his breath when he saw it. That thing is huge. Hold this line, Hill's voice said in his ear. You're good, let him go. The ramp locked in the down position, forming an open wedge behind me. The wind buffeted my armor and fur. I felt it claw at me, then settle against my weight. I walked to the edge of the ramp and looked down properly. The Leviathan moved beneath us, maybe a few hundred meters down and closing. Chariots flanked it, racing ahead and behind. Stark flashed across its side in red and gold streaks, firing beams that impacted its armor but did not break it. He was softening it, not stopping it. This was density. This was pressure. This was a line of enemies thick enough to be worth my time. My hands curled into fists. My chest rose once, steadily. Parks called back one last time. We're at drop point, he said. If you're doing it, do it now. I can't hold this path long. I looked down at the moving mass of metal and flesh again. Yes, I said quietly, this is worthy. Without another word, I stepped off the ramp. The air took me instantly. The Quinjet shot forward overhead, its engines howling as it angled away. The wind hammered against my armor. My body dropped cleanly, legs down, arms loose at my sides. The street rose toward me. The Leviathan's armored back swelled up to meet me more than the ground did. I adjusted my angle slightly with a twist of my shoulders, aiming directly at the top of its spine. I smiled. The fall continued. The real fight was about to start.